Hello, and thank you so much for joining us today at Ridgepoint. If you're watching this video or listening to our podcast, we know that you're listening to this message after our Sunday morning services, and we just want you to know, wherever you are and whatever day it is, we're so grateful that you took time out of your day to listen to this message. This summer, we're doing a bit of a deep dive through the book of Hebrews, and we're continuing that in today's message with part 6 of our series called Eyes on Jesus. We're excited to hear from Pastor Joe today, so let's get right to it as Joe leads us through Hebrews chapter 11.
So even though the baseball all-star game is going to happen next week, there's a greater spectacle of baseball, which is causing a serious renegotiation of what going to a baseball game looks like, happening the past few summers, and it all is revolving around this one team from Savannah, Georgia, called the Savannah Bananas. And I would love to fill in all the gaps for you, but it just won't do it justice. So I'm going to forfeit some of the minutes of my sermon for us to take in a video so that we can all capture their story together. Now, just a warning for our online church friends, the powers that be may cut this video off mid-play. So we will put the link in the comments below after service is over so you can watch it. But let's take in the story of Savannah Bananas together this morning. How fun is that, right? So here's some stats. They've sold out every home game. They've got 50,000 people on a wait list for tickets. And people drive for hours and hours and miles and miles and miles to come see them. Can't say that about the Yankees or a lot of other professional baseball teams. They're unique. And the reason they're taking the game by storm is because they're trying something different. But this new thing, this phenomenon, really, it started with a vision inside. It really wasn't tangible, but the owners and the players that are on the team now, with great faith, are bringing this new thing into existence. The topic of faith is the epicenter of our next section of the book of Hebrews that we've been covering throughout the Sundays this summer. And we get to the end of this long, winding argument that we've covered the last few weeks, and we get to Hebrews 11, which is perhaps the greatest and most famous chapter of the book of Hebrews, but also maybe the New Testament, and it's all about faith. And it seems as if what's happening in this chapter is that the person who wrote the letter to the Hebrews is wanting to define what faith is and then give several examples so that the audience can receive it and begin to live like people of faith. But why? What argument's happening here? How is this taking place? 15 years ago, I was in the middle of my master's degree and I took a New Testament class, and one of our assignments, I still remember it, was to try to define the genre of Hebrews in 500 words or less with some scholarly support. So I went to work on trying to get the assignment done, and my research led to a couple different mounds of research. Mound number one was that this was a sermon. Hebrews is a long and winding sermon, a sustained argument, trying to lead a person from point A to point B through argumentation. But the second mound of research led to this different idea, that it was a letter from an elderly church member writing to some newer Christians to try to encourage them in the faith. The New Testament calls letters epistles. That's what the Greek word is for letters. And so I thought, why choose between the two? Why don't we just put them together? And so I made up a genre for Hebrews. You've heard it here first. It's called a surmissal, which is a whole lot easier to say than epistolermen or something like that. So I pressed send on my assignment, hoping that I wasn't going to fail, and it passed. But I think when I read Hebrews, what we need to hear is this is a friendly voice goading other Christians towards a deeper level of faithfulness. So the first several chapters are this long, winding argument, but it comes to this apex of now wanting to say, this is how we live out the word of faith that we have received. And it wants to talk about the idea of faith. So in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1, we get a definition of faith. It says this, that faith is the confidence of what we hope for and the assurance about what we do not see. This might be the shortest, simplest, punchiest definition of faith that you and I will find. But here's the deal. I think sometimes when we hear someone talk about their faith or being faithful, it's still kind of fuzzy, right? And so we go to the depths of how this word is used in this original language, and there's several different connotations for faith. And one of those is to have creativity to think about what is unseen. We see this in different ways in Hebrews chapter 11. We see it really specifically in verse 7 when the writer talks about Noah. He says, by faith Noah, when warned about things not seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. What we know about Noah and his story is that he began to preach about a destructive rain coming to the earth. But this idea of rain was something that no one ever heard of before. There has been these huge rain showers in their community. And while he's doing that and preaching this weird message of rain, he's building this large albatross of a structure in his front yard. So people are going, what's up with your sermons? And what's up with this thing that you're building? These two things would have been otherworldly to Noah's community. But they were real to him because he captured a vision inside. He heard the word of the Lord, and then he knew he needed to do something about it. Being creative is having the capacity to see something that is unseen and to work and to labor to bring it into the seen realm and into reality. We note this dynamic once again in Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the confidence of what we hope for and the assurance of what we do not see. The writer of Hebrews says there's actually two fields of vision. There's a field of vision where we can see things and measure things and draw people's attention to something that's out there. But there's an equally real field of vision that's in the unseen. It's where an idea begins. It's where a dream is first considered. And what faithful people do is that we don't give up. We don't call it ludicrous. We work hard, and with prayers and with labor, we bring the thing that's in the unseen realm and we migrate it towards, and we reach towards it in the seen realm. And this might seem like something that other people do, but I have a feeling that each of us have done this before. For instance, somebody in this room probably started a business that didn't used to exist. You came home one day, you had a terrible day at the office, and you thought, it'll be better to work for myself than to work for the boss that I have at work. And so you begin to scratch down on a piece of legal pad what it would be like to go out and branch out and to go on your own, and you try to bring your spouse in on it. And then you go out there and try to find different people to invest in it. And the next thing you know, you've got articles of incorporation. You never thought you'd ever have to do something like that. And you've got vendors to get supplies. You've got customers who receive a service from you. Next thing you know, you're hiring people. So you have to have a crash course on YouTube about payroll taxes. You never had to do that before. You've got this employee handbook because you've had some rascals work for you in the past. And you got to clean all that up. Next thing you know, you're hosting a summer picnic, and Flo from accounting is belting people with water balloons. You think to yourself, wow, this didn't used to exist. It did somewhere. It just wasn't seen. Some of us, it started when we started our family. We wanted to have a family, but we hadn't even been on a date before. So we found someone to start that family with, and we began to plot and to make dreams. And next thing you know, children start showing up, and you start trying to, how exactly do you put the car seat in the car? And now we got to buy a van, and now we've got to start putting money aside for college education. And have you seen the length of the receipt now from Dillon's because of all these kids? And you're picking up this supplemental insurance from Aflac because you were told you're going to go to the emergency room someday. You better have some extra coverage to cover that expansive emergency bill. All those things, they didn't exist before, but it started somewhere. Some of us, we got a job offer in a different city than where we were from, and we were scared to death, but we took it. We left our family and our friends behind, and we went to a new city, and we were lonely for a little while. But we knew that we needed a new group of friends, and so we signed up for a kickball league or something like that. Next thing you know, we got a gang of thieves that we play kickball with, and then we start to meet our neighbors, and we go to bingo or something like that. All of a sudden, you start to stitch this network of people together, and they become really good friends. You get matching tattoos. You go to Vegas together, and it dawns upon you on the ride home, I like these people better than the yahoos I went to high school with. But how'd you get there? You had to take a risk. You had to have a vision in your mind. You need to will it into existence. And that's what it means to have creative faith. Every adventure starts with a who knows. Who knows I should take that job? Who knows we should start a family? Who knows I should start that business? Some of us in this room are paralyzed by the oh no's of difficulty in our circumstance. But if we can learn to change our oh no's into who knows, It'll be the beginning of an amazing adventure, one that we'll tell stories about, one that will have the hair on the back of our neck stand up because of God's faithfulness along the way. But this wild or wide-eyed living isn't for everyone. Everyone wasn't born with this in their kit. Some of us need to have those metaphorical floaties if we're going to jump off the diving board in the deep end. We just need more confirmation. We need to know that someone's going to be there with us. We need to grow in the way of exercising our faith by taking the things that are unseen and to work them into the seen realm. I imagine the writer of Hebrews knew that there are folks like that in their congregation as well. So before he or she left them off the hook, they gave another definition, another idea of faith. In Hebrews 11:6 it says this, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him." Now this verb in Hebrews 11:6, to please God, is a unique word. In fact, we only find it in a couple different places in the New Testament. We only find it in Hebrews 11 and Hebrews 13. But for those who are doing research trying to define this word, it's not good enough just to have it in two places in one book, and so they broaden their search. They go to other ancient literature, and we're so grateful to have this source called the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament. This word in Hebrews 11, talking about this faith that God rewards, this earnest seeking, is the way that the writer of Genesis defined a couple of key characters early in the story in Genesis 5 and Genesis 6, one being Enoch and one being Noah, who've already mentioned. Now, if you were to look at Enoch's life and Noah's life, they have different lives. They're not perfect, but their common denominator is that when everyone else was moving in one direction, they decided to go in the other direction. They broke from convention. They decided to swim upstream. They didn't have to have all the details, but they decided to go on a wild adventure with God. And Hebrews is clear that breaking from the conventional paths in order to make a new world is the formula of seeking to please God. It's clear in verse 6. The writer of Hebrews says this, God rewards a life like that. Someone who decides to make the leap. Which brings us back to the savanna bananas and the banana ball phenomenon that we're experiencing. With vision in their minds and hope and faith in their hearts, Jesse and Emily Cole took the plunge. They took on this team where there are no fans showing up to their game. But in order to have this outcome that they have today, they couldn't just see the empty stands at that baseball field. They had to see it full of people. And with that faith, they began to experiment. They began to dream. And yes, it wasn't easy. It came at a steep cost. We heard it in their story. When there was a financial strain on the team, they sold their house. They emptied their savings accounts in order to continue to go on with the dream, to keep the band together. When it came time to name the team, they decided that they would find a crazy name and not a safe name, no matter the side-eyed looks that sportscasters gave them on the nightly news. They literally said, if all of baseball is going right on the fork in the road, we're going to go left. And it's worked. Perhaps my favorite part of the whole story is when Jesse Cole says that the aim of the organization is not wins and losses. It's not just about baseball and its game, but it's about the belonging that they've created in that community through this baseball game. When you and I have a vision and we put joy behind it, we can draw people to it. Miraculous things do happen. Hebrews 11 ends in verses 39 and 40 with this idea of a faith-filled vision that impacts many people. The writer says, these were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us they would be made perfect. This is what the writer is alluding to. God started a story and he began to draw people to it. And their life was like bricks on a brick paved road. And life after life, story after story begins to lengthen that road. And the people who are living the faith now, they can only do so because people lived by faith before them. And because we're living by faith today, we actually give an opportunity for people in the future, the next generation, to continue to lay bricks and to continue to put that path in front of us and continue to get to God's wonderful destination that He has in mind. We need to be reminded this morning what's at stake with how we conduct ourselves today. Is our life today worth calling in conjunction and in connection with the faith story that happened before us? And are we living in such a way that we're paving a path for the generations after us? To be honest, I wonder if we give our best towards this vision as the modern people of God. Like the Savannah Bananas, are we willing to look past the chasing of winds at all cost, which will alienate people along the way? What if our primary aim was to draw people together, to stoke joy in their hearts, and to convince them and to encourage them to go on faith-filled journeys so that the story can continue to press forward? I'm concerned at times we're tempted to be like the baseball purists in the Savannah Bananas story, reluctant to change, to try new things, and to ultimately let go of the scoreboards that constrain our behaviors. This seems to bear witness with some of the reviews that we hear about the church today. That we're more well known for our hot takes instead of our hallelujahs, our crossed arms instead of our dance moves, and sometimes our growling instead of our graciousness. But I have a dream. I have a dream that we're going to be convinced as we give ourselves to the story of God, that we're going to change our combative attitudes, the win-at-all-cost posture, that we're going to get rid of our sometimes self-righteous crusades and to put on the yellow tuxedo. Become better at hosting the community of God as the story of God continues to move and to shape the world around us. If we can imagine doing that, then the future has so many great possibilities. The sky will definitely be the limit. God's done it before, and God will do it again. What animates this vision is an old quotation from an old Christian writer named G.K. Chesterton. This is what he said about Christianity. He wasn't born a Christian. He became a Christian in his adult life. And when his friends asked him why he chose Christianity out of all avenues, this is what he said about Christianity. The more I considered Christianity, the more I found that while it was established a rule and an order, the chief aim of that order was to give room for the good things to run wild. On our best days, our very best days, we give space for good things to run wild. All I know is that exciting progress is being made in our new building, and it's adding to our hope for the future that we're going to host spiritual transformation, the changing of lives, the building of communities here at our ministry center. But as we see walls go up, rooms redone, there's another renovation that needs to happen in our lives. And it's a renovation within. That God would change our hearts, that He would change our habits, so that we could be better about hosting His dream in the earth. By being people of faith and taking risks and having joy in the midst of it, we will see that happen in our time. Let's pray together this morning. God, we thank You that You're so rich in generosity. You haven't given up on us. God, we thank You that You're the same yesterday, today, and forever. We thank You that as we meditate on Your ancient story, what we see again and again, every chapter and every song, it's a story of hope and of love and of joy and of a community being formed over the whole world that testifies to an empty tomb and to the possibilities because You're on the throne. God, we confess to You at times we are so constrained and paralyzed by our unwillingness to jump into the unknown. And at times, God, we confess that we've been growling instead of gracious. So I pray that You would mold and shape our hearts, stoke our imaginations, give us great creativity, and I pray that we'd see Your kingdom come and will be done. in the years ahead. We ask all these things in Jesus' name, and all of God's people said, amen.
Once again, thank you for checking out today's message. We hope something from Pastor Joe stood out to you today that you're able to apply to your day-to-day life and your faith journey. Real quickly before we let you go, we want to encourage you to right now grab your phone and make sure you're following Ridgepoint Church on Facebook and Instagram. We're pretty active on there, posting just about every day with info about upcoming events and recent photos, but we also post either a Bible verse or a quote from Pastor Joe's sermon every day. We also post our weekly trending videos on there, plus we live stream our services every Sunday on Facebook. So open up your favorite social app and give us a like or a follow. We'd love to meet you, so feel free to send us a message anytime and let us know how we can be praying for you. We've got 2 more weeks left in this Hebrews series, so we hope to see you again next time right here at Ridgepoint.